Actually, I'm gonna go kill that backlight, I think. All right, let's see if this thing works. Hey everyone, welcome to the live stream of the Six Sided Podcast. I'm your host, as usual, the Taxman, and there's just a couple of newsworthy items that I wanted to discuss tonight. Just easier to do a live stream than to record a show, just with my whole family situation and everything like that. So I figured I would do this. Just want to say before I get started, a big shout out to everyone from the WrestlingWithWrestling.com team, especially Andre. Remember, brother, I'm telling you, we got to do that Winnipeg versus Calgary show. That's going to be happening for sure. What's happening, cool man? Yes, we're going to be doing that for sure. Whether we're going to drag you in, kicking or screaming or whatever, we're going to do it. So that is going to be in the near future for everybody interested. And I definitely think it's going to be a good show. So definitely want to be tuned in for that. So the couple of news, not questions, but a couple of the news stories that I wanted to talk about that came out is first off, well, one's not Impact related, but I wanted to discuss it anyway. So it's a lot of this whole the Elite starting a new wrestling promotion and kind of what it means for the wrestling community in general coming up. So essentially, it was rumored that all the guys from the Elite, Chris Jericho, Jim Ross, and the owner from the Jacksonville Jaguars, Shahid Khan, were all going to team up essentially and start a new wrestling promotion. Now, I know that a lot of people are worried. Is that the proper word? About this and what it means for companies like Ring of Honor, like Impact Wrestling, because now you're introducing a whole new, we'll say, entity into the not really crowded, but starting to be a little bit saturated independent wrestling market. And I'm not talking about independent wrestling, just your local, outfits like CWE here in Winnipeg, for example. I'm talking about like Ring of Honor, like Impact, like World of Sport, although I'm not sure what's happening with that. Lucha Underground to fall under this, AAW, outfits that have enough of a fan base and enough promotion and enough pull and clout, as it were, to be able to sign talent. So what does this mean if this new entity is coming in? Now, apparently, Jericho and Ross are just going to be now. Again, we're speaking hypothetically because nobody knows for sure if this whole thing is happening or not. But supposedly, if you believe everything you read, Chris Jericho and Jim Ross are going to be on-screen talent. This whole venture is essentially being put together, mitigated, and everything by the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, and then having the large backer that would be Shahid Khan, and obviously an owner of the NFL team. He's got a couple of dollars in the pocket to be able to spend on an event like that. What it means for talent. Now, I'm looking at this a couple of different ways. If it's something where they are going to, let's say, have a quarterly show, so that would be like a pay-per-view event every quarter of the year, then it gives them a lot of opportunity to be able to team up with outfits such as AAA or Crash or Impact or Ring of Honor, not have them so much sign talent and have to produce a continuous episodic series. I don't know if that's the way to go right off the bat. If again, we're all speaking hypothetically, if they are going to be doing this, I really think that signing a bunch of talent just to sign talent isn't the way to go. And the further part to that is I'm not sure what talent essentially is available that they would be able to sign if they were going to be doing a weekly television series, because a lot of talents contracts, as you know, although they are allowed to work for different outfits, a lot of that is depending on them not being on television in a different country. So that's something very interesting to keep in mind as well. But honestly, I know that everybody is kind of leery about this as well. Like maybe it's not a good idea to be doing this, or maybe it's not the right time. I disagree with that. I think that in today's landscape of wrestling, this is probably the perfect time for them, especially with all the notoriety from them coming off of New Japan and Ring of Honor, all the television time, the being the Elite Series. I know a lot of people poo-poo that one for whatever reason, but that's a ton of exposure that these guys honestly normally wouldn't get. So they have all these factors working for them. What else works for them right now is that their contracts are essentially up with all of the outfits that they are currently working for, which is again keeping their names fresh in the lexicon of everybody talking about who's going to be coming to what company. I know WWE obviously is bandied about that they're all going to go there. To me, I just don't see it, especially in this day and age. Right now, in the professional wrestling market, I think that you'd almost be foolish to not want to test the waters on your own and see what you can do on your own rather than just join a large company like WWE. We all know what happens then. Maybe you make it, most likely you don't. And you're kind of left like a lot of these guys with no direction. You know, you're there. You're a body. You're not the top guy on the independents. You're not a guy making waves across the industry. You're not somebody who's experimenting and pushing the boundaries of everything else. You're just a guy, a key in the cog that is the machine of WWE. So I just don't imagine that any of those guys are going there. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I feel like this bears repeating too because it's overlooked very much in my opinion, is the amount of money that's available in the, we'll call it, independent scene right now. So everybody knows that wrestling is not as popular as it was in the 90s or even the 80s or the 70s for that matter. And I'm not talking about the low periods like, 84 to 86 or 93 to 96. I'm talking about in general right now, there are far less people watching professional wrestling than there has ever been at any other point in history. That's a fact. What's also a fact is that the average person spends more nowadays on professional wrestling than they have at any point in previous time. And a prime example of that is someone like myself. So I was a huge wrestling fan in the late 80s, early 90s, in like actually the whole 90s, who am I trying to kid, into the early 2000s. Huge wrestling fan. I never missed an episode of either Raw or Nitro because I used to catch it on TSN. So Monday nights I'd watch Raw. Tuesdays after work, or after school, I should say, they would have the replays of Nitro. So I was always able to watch both programs. So needless to say, I watched a ton of wrestling. I didn't spend a lot of money on wrestling. Part of this is because I was a kid, and part of it was it wasn't a thing back then for myself and for my friends even. We just didn't spend a lot of money. Yeah, a few of us had the games or whatever like that, but we weren't throwing money at wrestling. That's just what it was. Fast forward now I have, and much to my wife's chagrin, a plethora of wrestling t-shirts. I got memorabilia. I got so much Bret Hart stuff because he's my favorite wrestler of all time. I have autographed books. I got all of Jericho's books. I have just like, and one day maybe I'll show it all. My little man cave area in the basement. But what I'm trying to get at is things like this didn't happen in the big boom eras of professional wrestling. Yes, people were watching the program. Yes, more people were going to the shows, but they weren't spending as much money on the product. And so I should say, the way that I see it, if the Bucks and Cody, with the fan base that they have now, with their entrepreneurship, the way that they promote themselves, there's a lot of money that they can have fans who want to spend it on them to be able to spend it on them. You know, a lot of fans, if they go to WWE, for example, would just be turned off and that's it. And there's going to be a lot of fans that maybe will tune in, but it's not the same thing. It's completely different if you have a product that people are invested in and they want to invest in you, right? And right now, Cody, the Bucks, Kenny Omega, they have wrestling fans investing in them. That's why so many people are buying the shirts. That's why so many people are subscribing to New Japan or the Honor Club. That's why you see so many people with the Funko Pops, right? It just, wrestling fans nowadays, although there are less of them, are far more likely to want to invest and want to be invested in products and, more importantly, wrestlers and personalities that they care about, that they want to be a part of, that they want to be part of the experience. So if that's what these guys are going to do, is start a new wrestling promotion and give the fans this type of experience, I think that's the way to go. And I think it's a smart move on their part. And honestly, with those 5 guys in the elite, you throw in somebody with the experience, the plethora of experience between Jim Ross and Jericho. Even if they're on-screen talents, they're obviously still, you know, going to be helping out. They're going to be giving advice. They're going to be doing whatever they need to do to help these guys be successful, which is in turn going to make this whole venture successful. So I am very interested to see where it goes, and I will definitely support it. I will definitely be checking it out, and for sure I'm not the only one. I just don't think it's a lot of the doom and gloom that a lot of people are talking about, like that they're gonna, let's say, put Impact out of business, or that they're going to be putting Ring of Honor out of business. I don't see that. I don't think that that's anything that somebody needs to be concerned about. And once again, depending on what kind of a program they run, I could very easily see them partnering with Impact, with Ring of Honor, with these different outfits, and really, you know, kind of being that bridge that brings a lot of these companies together. Like Impact had tried, you know, bringing Crash and AAA and Lucha Underground and all that together. So we'll see where it goes. Cody put out a tweet today that's teasing a big reveal or whatever in January. We'll see what it is. I would assume at the very least it's going to be another All In. But once again, if anybody can pull it off, I think it's these guys. They have the drive, the determination, and quite frankly, they have the backing of the wrestling fan right now, being able to invest in them as people. Like I said, people want to invest in them. So why not take advantage of that? The other thing that I wanted to talk about, which was a hot button issue, is, oh, I see a nice question in the chat, and I definitely will be getting to that later in the show. Once again, if anybody has any questions that you want to get to, I will after I talk about the newsworthy things. So please leave them in the chat. I will be getting to that. I see you, Cool Man. I see you, Jimmy. So we will definitely be getting to that as we move along in the program right now. The other big piece of news that I want to talk about is LAX being taken off of that Evolve card. So this came out, I want to say it was on Monday. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong. It's possible. I have a lot of things going on. So they were supposed to be wrestling on the Evolve show coming up on, that would have been, what, January 15th, I guess, of this year? Or they might have been on the 16th. But anyways, so they were going to be wrestling on the Evolve show. They were supposed to be wrestling, what tag team was it from NXT? I'm trying to read it here. Oh, Street Profits. See, I don't watch NXT, so I have no idea who they are. But anyways, so they get pulled from the program. Gabe Sapolsky, or however the fuck you say his name, whatever, sends out a garbage tweet. It was garbage, that they've been pulled from the show. He has no control, and it is what it is. So obviously all that does is ignite a firestorm from all the Impact detractors almost immediately that are going, oh, I can't believe this company's pulling LAX off the card. I can't believe they're doing this. Why? There's a few very simple reasons why this happened. First off, apparently LAX was supposed to lose to Street Profits in this match. Why is that important? This is important because WWE was going to be filming that match for, I'm not sure if it was a showcase in NXT later on or what it was, but they were going to be filming that match. So why in the world would you want your top tag team to go to a different promotion and lose to, once again, I've never heard of these guys. If somebody else has, it is what it is, right? I don't know who they are, but why would you want your top team to go and job to somebody else, right? It just doesn't make any sense. The other part of this whole equation is, and I'm not sure that a lot of people know this, that Evolve is actually, we'll say, like a feeder scouter system for NXT. Now, you can look down the list of recent names like Walter, Leo Rush, Ricochet. They've all been in these showcase matches on Evolve. Then in a few weeks later, you see their contracts or their picture with Triple H or whatever at the NXT office. We saw it previously as well, although there was a big commotion with it when Adam Cole and Red Dragon, it was the same situation. They go to an Evolve show, which was essentially their showcase match for NXT. At the time, they were still under contract with Ring of Honor, so that started a whole lawsuit and a whole bunch of middling business, we'll say. Obviously, Adam Cole and Red Dragon, I should say, ended up joining the WWE. As we all know, they all wound up in NXT. But the fact is that they were under contract. They were in the feeder system of Evolve, which was a feeder system for NXT, and then there you go. So we all know as well that LAX's contracts are coming up, so it just makes sense. Why would you want your talent that you were trying to sign to a new contract go and play ball for another team and have their top scouts check them out, maybe pitch them an offer, maybe, a wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing, and next thing you know, LAX is the next jobber team in NXT. To me, I don't understand why there was so much backlash for this move. I understand maybe some of it had to do with people are just not familiar with what Evolve is or how that company is ran. Possibly as part of it. Possibly a lot of it, I still think, is a lot of negative backlash and negative publicity on Impact Wrestling itself. Just everything. It doesn't matter what they do. Anything that they do that could be perceived in a negative light is right away, oh, LOL TNA. Oh, they took their best team off the card. Why would you do that? Oh, they to me, it's the same old, same old. Most Impact fans, have to deal with this on a daily basis. I see it all the time on Twitter. A lot of it's ridiculous, but a lot of it's just trolling to troll as well. But I feel like if you truly understand the wrestling dichotomy that exists right now between Impact and other companies and how they're trying to build top teams like LAX, it would be catastrophic, to put it quite mildly, if they would lose LAX right now. Absolutely catastrophic. And I'm not knocking anybody else in the tag division there, like OVE or anybody else, Falaba, KM, whatever, right? If LAX leaves, like in the middle of this hot run, especially coming up to Homecoming, if they were to leave the company, it would be horrible. Like there's no sugarcoating it. It would be a goddamn travesty. So obviously a way to mitigate that is to take them off this show. And especially, like I said, now it comes out that the idea was that they were going to job to the tag team from NXT. So once again, why in the world are you ever going to let your top tag team be in a position like that? And especially, and I'm not saying that there's going to be a shooting it or anything like that. So before we get any further, I just want to make that clear. But what if they're in this match and they get hurt, or one of them gets hurt? Say Santana does mistimes the dive and he gets hurt, or Ortiz, blows a knee out. Right now, you've lost your top tag team 3 weeks out from Homecoming, and for what? For them to be on a independent so-called super show? It doesn't make any sense. It's not good for the brand. It does nothing for Impact. It doesn't really do anything for Santana and Ortiz, I don't think, to be on that show. It just, to me, it just makes sense to take them off. And to be quite frank, they probably should have never been added to that show anyways. I'm not sure who would have set that up to begin with, but it's just not a good situation. I really feel like the whole situation just could have been mitigated by them not even being a part of it to begin with. But it was, they were, now they're pulled, and that's kind of the end of it all. Ooh, we have messages held for review. I'm sure that's going to be a good one. Oh, that's why it's held for review. I'm showing that one. So those are the couple of pieces of news that I wanted to just kind of get off my chest and I talk about in a different light, because I feel like a lot of people aren't bringing those certain points up. So that's why I wanted to talk about them tonight. So just, I have a couple of comments here, so I'm going to get through to them. Jimmy, my boy, says Scarlett has to become knockout champion one day. Do you ever think Impact will decide to push her to the moon? Legitimately, I'm not sure what their plan is with Scarlett. I know, like, I've seen some of her matches in different promotions and whatever. I know the girl can work. Apparently, she had a match with Katarina on Explosion. I didn't miss it. Apparently, it was decent. Although everybody's version or everybody's idea of what a decent match is different, right? So you can't just go by what somebody says. But I will say that I think she can work. I'm not sure how you can push her to that top spot right now. I think she needs a little bit more, not character development, because I do enjoy her character, but she just got to get in the ring. Like, that's all there is to it. She needs to have a meaningful long-term story arc with somebody or a couple of people, right? If you're going to build her up as a credible contender to the championship, then she needs to be put in credible situations. So she needs to start a long-term feud with somebody like, oh, I don't know, you can almost throw in any name, like Taya, for example. You could build this whole an entire program on, and again, I'm just freestyling, but Taya being, we'll say, jealous about Scarlett's looks, for example, or the attention. Maybe Johnny Impact gives her the eye one day and Taya catches it, and this starts a feud, and it's personal. But you can build it and really showcase, the cunning streak or the mean streak or something tangible, something that people can sink their teeth into, not just her body, but something that people can sink their teeth into with Scarlett. That's the way that I think that you can build her into that top level, but she can't just be squandering in squash matches or stories that don't go anywhere, or setting her up in a stable or whatever. Things like that to me just don't make any sense. If you're going to make her credible, there are ways to do it. Just, I would like to see her more in the ring before too long, because I think the other thing you're kind of going to have happen is that people might start getting bored of the shtick, right? If she's not in the ring at least working on a consistent basis, then I feel like people are she's just going to be the promo girl. She's going to be the eye candy, the promo girl, and the average fan is going to, get a hard on for 30 seconds every show and be fucking done with it. But that's just the way I look at it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys think something different. Hey, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Cool Man 952. Impact knows that WWE would make LAX into jokes. Yeah, they would. They honestly would. And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. I was talking with Chef, and we were talking about doing a show on how Impact treats people of color, right? Because this is a company who has never shied away from having a black champion or having Latinos in places of power, important positions in the company. It's not run by rich white guys. You don't have gaudy factions or awful joke tag teams like Crime Time, for example, right? That to me, Impact Wrestling has and continues to treat people of color with a certain amount of distinction and credibility and everything else, which brings us to LAX and the way that they're presented right now in Impact Wrestling. There is zero chance if they went to WWE that they would be presented in anything close to it. They wouldn't be allowed to talk the way they sure as hell wouldn't be allowed to talk the way they do. They would never be allowed to perform in the ring the way that they do. They would never be allowed to have a mouthpiece like Conan, which, say what you want, he adds a ton of cohesion to that unit. And obviously there's all the intangibles that he brings with it, but there's are so many things that LAX are able to do in Impact Wrestling, partly because of who they are as entertainers and performers. I shouldn't say entertainers, but who they are as wrestlers and what they do as wrestlers, that you would just, it would never be able to translate to WWE. Never, ever, 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 ever. They would never, ever allow it. And anybody who tries to tell me, oh, if they were in NXT, they'd be, yeah, we all know what happens to big talents in NXT. Everybody knows. Go down the fucking list. Tag teams from NXT. The Ascension, where the fuck are they? The Vaudevillains, where the fuck are they? Right? You have just any of them. The Revival, may as well call them the revived jobbers. They fucking do nothing. It's such a waste. Part of it is that Vince just doesn't use tag teams. We all saw that when the Hardys came back. He couldn't fucking wait to break them up. Say what you will about the Hardys, but they're better as a team than just two individual dummies doing whatever the fuck on the roster. LAX, if they went there, would be the same thing. And they wouldn't be LAX, right? There's nothing with their characters right now that would translate over to WWE, and there's nobody there that would allow them to creatively be LAX the way that we know it, the iteration that we know it right now. And I've said this from almost day one of my podcast here, that this team just keeps improving and improving and improving. And legitimately, a lot of people could argue that they're the best tag team in the world right now in professional wrestling. I would argue they're easily top 5. Very, very easily. I actually, you know what? No, I would say that they're top 3, because I would say it's them, the Young Bucks, obviously, and everybody can say what they want about them. It just, in my opinion, they're like the tippy top of everything. And then your third team, you could easily throw somebody in like OVE, because I've seen a lot of OVE stuff as well outside of Impact Wrestling. They're just one of these teams to me who just keeps improving. But LAX is like that's your tippy top right now. In terms of professional wrestling as an industry right now, you really don't get much better than them. They're, to me, just a team that can elevate everybody. They match up style-wise with anybody. They can do anything in the ring. We've seen them. They were goddamn at fucking Bound for Glory. They're fighting on fucking 2x4s on the ring, and they make it look good. Like, there's literally nothing these guys can't do. So, anyways, that's my spiel about LAX. They would go to WWE and get killed, or be glorified jobbers, or just be nothing. They would never ever be the team that we all know them as today. It would never happen. And then, once again, there's the whole ethnicity bias, we'll say. And we all know it exists. There's no way around it. That's why WWE has had one black champion, The Rock, right? But nobody identifies The Rock as black except when you bring up that fact. And then you get into the, he's half black and whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. I'm kind of meandering a little bit, but I'm trying to prove a point of like, they're going to go there, and if they would go there, and I sure hope that they wouldn't. And another important fact to keep this in mind, and I totally forgot about this and it came to the top of my head. Once again, they're paired with Conan, right? So he's been through that. He knows what it's like there. He knows what he'd be in store for, right? he's had to deal with those contract situations with Rey Mysterio, for example. So he knows the beast, right? So obviously he's going to be very, we'll say, invested in the future of LAX, and there's almost no better guy to be able to do it, to be quite frank. Robert does wrestling reviews. My good friend Robert. I highly suggest Gabe Sablowski. How the fuck do you say that? Fuck that guy. Fuck Gabe Sablowski, you fucking cocksucker. Anyways, Evolve and NXT can eat a bag of dicks while they cry for LAX. Yeah, but legitimately, this is the other thing that I want to point out, right? So this fucking Gabe guy, he's a stooge for WWE. There's no other way to say it. What else are you gonna say, right? He's a stooge. So for him to come out and say that comment the way that he did, he knew the way that he said it was going to cause a firestorm of all the. How does Kester say it? E-turds? Is that it? Jimmy won't let me know. But anyways, he just gives these people ammunition to come at something, or to have something to come at Impact Wrestling with, to do the LOL TNA and this company's trash, and oh, I can't believe they're still around, and all this other fucking nonsense that we've just like. I see it so often on Twitter that you just kind of like blot it out, and you don't try not to pay attention to it too much, but it's there and it's very prevalent. And the way that he handled it was so fucking ridiculous. He could have easily just gone out and said, you know what, it was creative differences, or it was a mutual agreement, or whatever, but like some fucking way that doesn't give people the ammunition to go LOL TNA. But that's what he did. So fuck that guy. Fuck you, Gabe Saplowski, you fuck. Now I'm all fucking mad. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate that one. Robert does wrestling reviews again. When Impact pushes Latinos, African Americans, or women, it never felt forced. Exactly. It never did. And you'll see. I don't want to get ahead of myself, because I actually have a couple of new, and this is a spoiler for you guys because you're all listening right now. I have a bunch of new TNA Impact in Reverse that I've just recorded now that I'm finally not coughing and my ribs aren't fucking busted up and whatever. And a few of them are people of color, and a few of them are people that have been suggested to me to do programs with. So Jimmy, I'm looking at you. Anyways, but when Ron Killings was pushed, for example, nobody felt that was forced, right? Nobody was sitting there going, oh, I can't believe they're only pushing him because he's a black guy. No, it was never like that. When Bobby Lashley when he held every goddamn title in the company, nobody was like, oh, they gave it to him because he's black, or they gave it to him because they needed a black guy to do something, or whatever the fuck. Like, that never happened. When they've had women push Rosemary, there's no fucking person ever anywhere who's going to tell me that Rosemary's been forced down their throat, and she's been heavily pushed. And to be honest, most people want more, right? That's just the reality. The way that I see it, Impact does such a good job of allowing things to go organically. So you want to see Rosemary pushed, right? You want to see LAX pushed as LAX, as Latinos in that style, right? You don't want to see, them enforce vignettes or whatever. I love the way that they do it with them in the back rooms with Conan, and they're just talking like I watch it, and like, obviously I'm fucking the suburban white guy, right? But like, I've been around some stuff, we'll say, back in the day, so I know what feels real. And when I watch LAX, and when I've watched Ron Killings, or when I've watched goddamn, well, not that Bobby Lashley ever had much of a character, we'll say, but or even goddamn Jay Lethal when he was there and he was doing the Black Machismo thing, right? It was just it's these things that they allow their talents to do, to just be themselves and be their ethnicity, right? Sanjay Dutt, another perfect example, right? When he's Indian, but you would never look at him and say like, oh, he's a stereotypical Indian. He's coming out and he's got four Garishnas behind him and he's fucking doing what, like, no. Or I know everybody is all bent out of shape about him most times, but like low key as well, right? There's another guy. They never had him, as some ridiculous cartoon Latino character. The fucking dude is a badass. He looks like a fucking hitman and it's awesome. I don't know. To me, it's just they never seem to be forcing people down anybody's throat. In fact, I feel like Impact a lot of the time has set these performers, wrestlers, whatever talents up to where people want to see them. So whether it's a Scarlet, for example, right, or whether it's Falaba, who would ever thought that people would want to see Falaba in the, you know what I mean? But people fucking go nuts for it, or KM, right? Or like obviously now you have the OGs that are back. Just to me, it's just they do such a good job of allowing the fan to actually want something and enjoy it, rather than here we're gonna give you. I'll just use the example. If you saw Eli Drake every single week, every week he starts the show with a promo. Every week he has some match with some fucked up finish. And every week it was rinse, wash, repeat. Then everybody would be like, fuck this guy. Get him the fuck off the TV, because that's forced. But when he can do things like he's been doing lately, like with the gravy train or the turkey fucking gimmick at Thanksgiving, right? Just you're allowing people to be able to get invested in and want to see these characters. People want to see Eli Drake because of how he's presented, not in spite of how he's presented, if that makes any sense. I'm not sure if it does. So I think those are the rants that I wanted to get into. If you guys have anything else in the comments, obviously I will get to them as we move along here. A couple of things I wanted to touch on as well briefly. Like I said, I will be back next week with brand new episodes of TNA Impact in Reverse. You can catch them right here, youtube.com/C/six-sided podcast. And I will be doing a better job of getting back to having them every Wednesday at least. Also, as well, I want to just let everybody know that I'm going to be taking a bit of a break from the actual episode reviews of Impact Wrestling. It just, there's too much right now, and I feel like I don't need to do them, because like guys like Robert just fucking knock it out of the park every week, and I watch his show and I'm like, oh fuck, well, good luck following that up. You're fucked. but I really enjoy doing more of these specials, like the last one that I just did with Jimmy and Jenna. So I think that that's something I'm going to be focusing on a little bit more, and then obviously getting the TNA Impact in Reverse series out there consistently on Wednesdays, because I've been so fucking piss poor at it. It's really embarrassing. And every time I'm like, oh, it's Wednesday, I didn't do the fucking thing. Oh, it's Wednesday, I didn't do one. Although, granted, a lot of it, like, there's no way that I could have been able to do it when I was sick there, because I'm sitting there trying to not cough and hold my camera, and it would have just been a fucking disaster. So, anyways, those are coming back. I got some great ones. I've really been I've really been enjoying a lot of the research. Like, to me, doing the TNA Impact and Reverse stuff is so much fun, because I learned so much that I didn't know before. And there's a lot of things that did happen previously that I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And it's great to go back through history and kind of look at it and kind of relive it, as it were. So I'm looking forward to getting back into the swing of things and getting those out there. Robert does wrestling reviews. Did I watch Raw this week? No, but I heard it was fucking trash. And it's funny because to me, this is where you can tell if somebody's been a wrestling fan since the 2000s, early 2000s, or if they've been a fan since the 90s and 80s, right? I saw a ton of people on Twitter saying this was the fucking worst Raw of all time. I can't believe, I don't know what happened, but apparently, like, because I don't follow the WWE, so I'm a little bit um, in the dark to say. But all I saw was just match after match, person after person. There was literally no exceptions. Every single person that I saw talking about Raw said it was the fucking worst show they've ever watched ever, which says something to me. Like, there were a lot of terrible Raws in 93, 94, even 95. There was some awful Raws and awful characters, right? I saw somebody tweet out a picture. It was like, this was the worst Raw ever. Remember this? And it was a match between fucking Bastion fucking Booger and goddamn Doink the Clown. And I'm like, oh yeah. Like, I remember those awful, awful matches. But mind you, that's when Raw was an hour, right? If not that you ever want to waste an hour of your life watching a television program, but goddamn, 3 hours, a 3-hour program, and you can't take one positive out of it. It's like, what the fuck? And I get the argument that a lot of people have, like, oh, I want to keep watching it because it might get better. Yeah, well, I might fucking grow 6 feet tomorrow and fucking win $1 million and get the fuck out of here, snow-covered Winnipeg, but that's probably not happening. Right? People who watch the show in the hopes that it's going to get better, just, if you're a fan, you're a fan. Fine. Be a fan. That's fine too. But don't sit there and watch the show and think it's going to get better, and then every week throw on your Twitter machine that this was worse than last week's worst episode, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. If I didn't like something, and that's why I don't watch WWE, I haven't watched WWE an episode of Monday Night Raw. I don't even know if they still call it that, to be honest with you, or SmackDown since, oh goddamn, 2003. And I'm not even fucking lying. I've not sat down for one whole episode of Raw in whatever that is, 15 years. And obviously there's no draw to now for it for me. So why would I bother, right? Why would I want to sit there for 3 hours and pull what hair I have out? It doesn't make any sense. Robert does wrestling reviews. I'm amazed that the show is getting buried since the Raw head booker is Paul Heyman. Okay, is he the booker, or is this a situation where there's a fucking 100 Hollywood writers who don't know a goddamn thing about wrestling, and they're trying to write this show, and it's just rinse, wash, repeat every fucking week? Because from my understanding, they have their, I don't even know what the fuck they call it now. It's not a booking team. It's not a creative team. Is it a writing team now? I don't even know what you would call it. But anyways, apparently they have all these jabronis that they'll write Monday's Raw on, we'll say, Thursday, like leading up to, right? Then it's revised the whole weekend. And then Monday, it may or may not be the actual show because it depends what Vince wants to do with the program. And that's kind of that's my understanding about it. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. Now, if your head booker is Paul Heyman could probably book great matches. In fact, I know he could book good. Well, I'm not going to say great matches because I was never a fan of ECW. That's just me. And I don't like a whole lot of the fucking fluff finishes and whatever, but even if he's booking, he could book goddamn The Rock and Austin. But if Hollywood writers that don't know anything about wrestling are writing this program, there's no way it's going to make any sense. They're not writing a wrestling program. That's what a lot of people that's what a lot of people just they don't understand too. You can't watch WWE for a wrestling program, because it's not. And they've gone way out of their way to prove time and time again that they are not a wrestling company, right? They're an entertainment company. So they have entertainment writers writing their show and things of that nature. So yeah, just you could have and they didn't they not have Dusty Rhodes and Paul Heyman and fucking whoever else booking their programs for years there? And what do you get? If I You could book the Kane and Undertaker, but if a bunch of monkeys are writing the fucking script, then what do you expect? It's going to be a bunch of blah, 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 and that's it, fluff, garbage. So fuck, like it's fucked. Robert does wrestling reviews. The Raw head booker since Extreme Rules 2018 is Paul Heyman. That's the latest information available. Yeah, see, once again, if he is, once again, he can book anything. He could book goddamn whatever match he wanted. But if they're writing a script that is so fucked, then it totally negates any positive anything that he might get from booking a good match. If somebody in the chat watches Raw, religiously or whatever, or even semi constantly, when's the last time that you watched a match on Raw and it was just like, wow, that was a fucking great match, totally redeems the show, and whatever. Like, because the way that I see it on Twitter is that it doesn't happen. Just Raw's a show with some wrestling in it instead of a wrestling show. It's a show that has some wrestling. And that's the difference between, that's the huge difference, obviously, between WWE and Impact or Ring of Honor. Just the weekly episode shows, what are they showcasing? Are they showcasing a soap opera story that's written by a bunch of fucking Hollywood jabrones? Or are they a wrestling program where they have great wrestling matches and backstory relating to the matches? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Yeah, it's just, and once again, it just, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and it's fine. But to me, that's just the way that I see it. Every Monday and Tuesday, like constantly, the day after on Twitter is just, it's the same. I don't know. Is everybody goddamn Stockholm Syndrome than watching? I don't really know. I don't get it. To me, it doesn't make any sense. Once again, and I love this one. I guess that there's I don't know what the fuck his name is. I always see his garbage on fucking Twitter. This JD Jabroni, who I assume he essentially watches Raw just to do a tirade on it on YouTube after, and I guess he's got a bunch of watchers or whatever. Because we all know negativity sells. That's why, like, legitimately, I could go and make a video saying LAX is the greatest tag team in TNA Impact history, and it would get like 6 views. Or I could do a video that says LAX is the biggest fucking racist fraud team that I've ever seen, and it would get like 100,000 views or some fucking stupid, just because people love negativity. Unfortunately, negativity sells. So my assumption is that that's what this fucking JD guy does, because that's all I ever see is him complaining that the product sucks. Why does he have to review a sucky product? Rinse, wash, repeat every week. And it's like, I guess that's the shtick, is just he just needs something to fucking complain about. Maybe he needs to get laid. Who fucking knows? I don't know. Goddamn, like. Coolman952, do you think Impact should bring back the Knockouts tag team titles? I do, on a condition. I think that they need more talent on the Knockouts roster. I'm not saying that they don't have talented women. And by the way, does anybody ever know what Sue Young's cryptic tweet was a couple of weeks ago? Because it happened, and then I was sick, so I was so far out of the loop with everything. If somebody knows, please leave it in the comment section, because I'm so far out to lunch on it. But anyways, I feel like Jordan Grace was a big addition. I don't think that people realize just yet how important she's going to be in the next 2 to 3 years. But she was a big get. Um, I would I'd love to see them go after Britt Baker. To be honest with you, there's a few other talents like high quality women talents out there that I think that they should be setting their sights on. Once you bring a few more of them in, then to me it makes sense that you can have um, the Impact knockout tag titles come back, because then you can have believable tag teams, right? We all know that Ali and Rosemary, for example, tag team as the Demon Bunny, right, on the Independents. But really, that's about the only actual tag team. I would rather them not just throw women together as a team and send them out there, like putting like Katarina and I don't know, Rebel, for example. It doesn't make sense. If they're and there's a lot of great tag teams in Shimmer, I understand. I'm not really familiar because I don't get to watch a lot of their stuff. But if it's something, or even Rise, was there not a bunch of great tag teams in Rise as well? But anyways, if you're gonna bring in legitimate teams, then it legitimizes the belts, if that makes sense. And then you have a legitimate reason to bring it in. I would love for them to do um like a 6 or 8 week arc. We're going to speak hypothetically here. A 6 to 8 week arc, if they're bringing in the tag titles, and have a fucking huge tournament, so that every episode of Impact you have, let's say, 2 or 3 knockout tag title or tag tournament matches, right, and progress the story to a final build at a pay-per-view where your main event of the pay-per-view is whatever these 2 final teams are, um, just going head to head for the knockouts tag titles. I think that's the way to go. So yes, to answer your question, I do think that they should come back, most definitely, but I do think that they are in need of a few bodies or teams to make it a legitimate thing, rather than it just, because again, if they don't make it legitimate, then all you're going to see is people complaining online that, oh, they're only doing it because WWE did it. We all know it's false, but that's going to be the narrative, right? Or they're only doing it because women's wrestling is hot right now, or whatever noun, adjective, verb you want to throw in there. It's we all know what would actually happen. So they need to have a legit. They need to be able to legitimize it before they get to that point, and bringing in more talent, in my opinion, is the way to go. So we are a few minutes off of the start of Impact Wrestling tonight. So I want to thank everybody for joining me this evening. Once again, if you haven't subscribed yet, please, I invite you to subscribe. Just hit that nice shiny red button. Also, this is going to be transcribed, so everybody out there in podcast land will be able to listen to this program. So you'll be able to find it on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you steal, barter, buy, whatever the fuck your favorite podcast. Search for us, search for me, I should say, whatever, because there's no us. Six-sided podcast, and definitely want to make sure that you give that a download. Also, once again, next week, look for the re-coming or reiteration or re-fucking flag nation of TNA Impact in Reverse, and I'm looking forward to getting that series back underway. So, for myself, the Taxman, thank you all very much for joining me tonight. Once again, hope you subscribe, hope you enjoyed the show, and as I usually say, take care of yourselves and each other. Good night, everyone.